You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing, beautiful listeners. Welcome. I am so excited about today's episode, the topic, but who I have joining me. Today's guest is David Richo. He is a psychotherapist, a teacher, an author of more than 15 books, and how he approaches his work is really from a Jungian philosophy. He uses Buddhist principles and has decades of clinical experience. I invited him to join me today. I had him come and talk about a topic that I just think can never be talked enough about, and that is trust and trusting again after betrayal. So without further ado, here is my episode with David Richo.
Hi, Amie.
Well, hello. It is so lovely to meet you. And I am I'm kind of pinching myself that you agreed to do this. I just thought he'll probably never see the email. I'll probably never hear from him. So to hear back so fast, it was awesome. I'm really excited to talk with you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I just had to tell you, I found you because my therapist mentioned you in some of your work. She actually mentioned you around the 5 A's. That's what she had brought up in our session. So I had Googled 5 A's and I was like, oh. And then I just kind of went down a rabbit hole and then I ended up buying all your books. One thing that stood out to me when I was reading through your books, oh gosh, it'd be so nice to have your voice to add to this message that sometimes I feel like is really hard to convey, is around trust. I mean, when that has been shattered so deeply, it's a hard one for a lot of my clients to get back or feel like they can never trust again. So if you're okay with that topic and then wherever else it leads us, because I don't really have an outline. I just kind of like the more conversational style. That's what I thought. I would pick your brain and have your wisdom around is the trust thing. Because I love your compass too. So I want to bring that up at some point.
Good.
I think that's
Sure.
a really cool visual that stood out to me too. So the two books that you've written so many books, like over 15. Do you even, is that about right? Like 17? Yeah, tons of books. A lot of books, a lot of really great books. And I'll be honest, I have most of them on Audibles. I've listened to a lot of them and I've skimmed through a lot of them, hitting some of the key chapters that I really liked. The two books that I felt like were really relevant to my listeners were Daring to Trust and When the Past is Present. Those two books. I just really loved what you had to say. And like I said, when my listeners, most of the women, have experienced that betrayal and loss of trust, the sense of loss in that trust in themselves, their body, their intuition, God, humanity, love, everything gets shattered with that kind of attachment injury. So it, it's like this, where do I even start and how will I ever, and maybe I never will trust again because everything feels so turned upside down. So I would love to just maybe start, David, with what trust really is. There was a naive kind of trust, thinking that, well, we're married and I've done all the right things to make sure I have this really good marriage and God sanctioned marriage. And so if I try really hard to do all of these things and be perfect in all of these things, then none of that should have happened. And really feeling blindsided. What are your thoughts just about that kind of trust?
Well, I agree with you that it's essential and central to anything within the topic of relationship. And my book is called Daring to Trust because we are daring when we trust, since one of the givens of life is that people, no matter how much they promise sincerely that they can be relied on, that they'll be there for us, that they're telling us the truth about themselves and their feelings, there's always the possibility that that's not going to happen. And Trust is relying on someone else to be truthful, to be there for you. You're assured, you're certain that you can safely believe the other person and commit yourself to the other person and show your true feelings, and that the other will receive them without judging you or shaming you.
Yeah.
And when you realize that a person may promise to do that, but when push comes to shove and you find out what that involves, how much of your own ego has to shut down in order for you to give kind of open hospitality to your partner's feelings, you might not come through, you being the one who's trusted. So that's why I entitled the book Daring, because you're daring to put your heart on the line,
Yeah.
knowing that people are not loyal or loving all the time or trustworthy. But mainly, I'm believing that if you first work on trusting yourself in two ways, you're more likely to be fairly safe when you trust someone else. First, you receive trustworthiness with gratitude. And second, when it's not there, you have inner resources built up so that you'll be able to handle the betrayal, the loss of trust, without having to retaliate.
Mhm.
So that shows that in order to have trust, you would also have to have built up strengths psychologically. That's the first part. You have inner resources to handle betrayals. And then secondly, you have to have some spiritual awareness and commitment so that you don't strike back and retaliate. When someone breaks the trust, we do the following things. We grieve and we show our grief to the other person
Mhm.
without shaming or blaming, but we do ask for accountability. And if the other person is open, we try to have a dialogue about how hurt we feel. We're going to share that pouch. We're going to hope we get some repentance on the other side from the one who betrayed us. But we're not going to be victims. We're going to be witnesses of what happened. And we're going to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and get on with our life. Secondly, when your basic trust is toward yourself, how you're going to handle how others come across, trustworthy, untrustworthy, and you can handle both of them, you're more likely to put out the kind of energy that will bring in someone trustworthy.
Mhm.
I could be saying that just out of superstition. I don't know if that's really true, but it seems right.
I agree. I think that call it quantum physics or whatever you want. I think there's an element of when you are settled within the self and have a sense of self and trust that we trust the intuition, we trust the body cues, we trust the thoughts, we trust that we can explore, that we can say no, that we can take space, that we can lean in, that we can change our mind. And I think in that, if there is someone that has malicious intent in some way, we will be able to see that maybe a little quicker than if we are questioning, doubting, and self-blaming or acquiescing in some way. to get that person's attention, right? Or to be chosen, whatever those nuances are that I think a lot of us show up in different attachment styles. But I like what you're saying there. And so I agree with you. It starts with that inner sense of self and trust. I think what you said there, we can retaliate. I also see we can self-destruct. We can retaliate it maybe against other people, but sometimes against ourselves. Wouldn't you say you've seen that as well? And again, with my listeners being divorced, majority of them never got what you were mentioning, the restitution, the repair, the I'm sorry, the any of that. So a lot of them are trying to handle and move forward, like you said, without those pieces from the partner and or ex partner. Can you talk a little bit about how someone can move forward when there is still an element of injustice? There's still an element of no repair from that person?
I'm so intent. This is the person who was betrayed speaking. So intent on moving on that I have no interest in trying to fix anybody, in trying to get clarity about the whys and wherefores. All I'm interested in now is being strong enough to move on and having the enough integrity not to get caught up in payback or in making sure that the other person realizes how bad he, she, they are. You see, it's a whole different way of living. It's not about how do I get someone to see once the betrayal is a big one. It is helping someone to see on minor matters. But let's say a major infidelity or a major abuse or any act of abuse or anything that will have to lead to divorce.
Mhm.
Once you've made that decision, then the plan to fix anything or change anything is no longer on the table. But let's go back to your question. Could you kind of restate it based on what I just said?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's so easy, and I feel like all my listeners are like, that's so easier said than done. Or because when there's that deep attachment wound, it feels so it feels almost impossible to let it go, like you're saying, to move on, to say, you know what? Divorce is the choice. Divorce is, I call it a life-saving divorce. In order for me to live in integrity in my life, I need this divorce because staying with you doesn't allow me to live within my values and my integrity. So I need this. I need this to save my life, to live my life. And I see a lot of women struggle to really, like you're saying, lay that on the table and move forward and live their life and be the creators in their life and heal because there is this piece holding them back that says, but he never apologized. He still looks like the good guy to the kids and everybody else. Everybody believes that it wasn't that bad, or you should just move on, or see, look, no one seeing or acknowledging the harm. So there's this part that feels like they need to have that acknowledged by other people, the person, the court system. They don't know how to give that to themselves. They don't know how to find that in themselves. It feels like they're excusing the harm if they do.
I do get that, and I do agree. Yes, we want to have our hurt heart acknowledged for its hurt by someone, and that could be a friend, a therapist, anyone. But when you're trying to get that witnessing, that healing witness from the partner, you might be barking up the wrong tree and you might be talking to someone who's no longer listening to you
Mm.
or maybe never did.
Mhm.
And you have to ask yourself, what part of me still needs approval, validation from someone with whom the interactions have really ended. See, the way I look at it is once you've decided on divorce and you've already tried every which way to have good communication, maybe you've even gone to couples therapy and it just hasn't really worked. When, quote, nothing now works, that's when you're moving toward divorce. Still trying to get something from the partner is a losing game.
Mhm.
You have to ask yourself, am I trying to get validation from this person whom I'm divorcing? Really because I need to have it witnessed, or is it my ego that has to have him admit that he was wrong, which he's highly unlikely to do if his ego is so big that it doesn't permit that.
Mhm.
See, the way I look at it is marriage is not the end of personal work. It's the beginning of a new kind of personal work in which there's another person on the stage, soon perhaps to be other persons on the stage, namely children. Maybe someone's going to come on the stage if the other person was unfaithful. You have that person to handle. Or another way of saying it is you're going to be dealing with a whole cast of characters instead of just yourself, as you were in college, when you could just do whatever you wanted, have one relationship after another. It doesn't really matter how trustworthy they were because you're continually letting go and moving on. But in a marriage, there's more of a commitment to stay. We shouldn't feel like we're obliged to stay, but we are finding out that we need to be a lot stronger than we ever were before. My book on this is called Ready: How to Know When to Go and When to Stay.
Mm.
So that's my main book on how to know when it's time for divorce or time for commitment.
Mhm.
If you're continually spending time during the marriage building up your own inner strengths, then when something happens, as inevitably it will, you're going to be able to handle it. And your ego, and if also you're doing some kind of spiritual practice, such as daily meditation, you're going to be able to handle that ego that's trying to assert itself, that wants to be sure that he knows how bad he was and acknowledges it, let's say, he or she or they. So it's a sticky area. I get that.
It is.
And we've
And
all been there. So, we know how this works.
that attachment binds strong. That it's not uncommon for a lot of my clients to want the hand. I don't know where I heard it phrased like this, but it's the hand that hurt me needs to also be the one to heal. And sometimes we're still looking for that healing from the person that harmed. And to your point, when divorce is on the table or has happened, it makes me think about your compass, your trust compass, and the reality check, that radical acceptance of that reality. Like, okay, if as you say, south is reality, and I gotta get rooted in that. What is that? And like you were saying, the reality is that this person is in no place, shape, or form to give me what I need as they currently are. If we're in divorce or divorcing, it means that they're not doing the work. They're not doing their own self work. They're not doing the relationship work. And so there is a level of radical acceptance in that reality. Can you talk a little bit more? I'm going to like describe that whole compass. I loved the visual of this idea. Like,
Yes, they call it the compass of trust.
yeah.
So if you think of a compass with the four directions, east and west, your at east and west horizontal is yourself and others, or yourself and your partner.
Mhm.
in this instance. And I need to be able to appreciate and handle what happens within myself and what happens from the other. So I need to trust myself to be able to handle that in the direction of self and direction of other. Then there's north and south. That's the vertical part of the compass. The north represents the higher power, spirituality, the North Star, what you can always rely on. You can't always rely on people.
Mm-hmm.
You can rely on higher power,
Mm-hmm.
whatever form that takes for you. Then south is bedrock reality, the ground, the earth, exactly what happens and the givens in every human life.
Mm-hmm.
In my book, The Five Things We Cannot Change, I talk about the five basic givens that we all have to accept because they're unchangeable. When you can say yes unconditionally in a trusting way in all four directions, that's the equivalent of safety and security. If one of the directions, such as people in the West, where the relationship is coming to its sunset, you're not going to feel happy. You're not going to feel safe. You're only going to feel safe when you have trust in all directions. So I get it that we would want to do something about that, make some kind of a change so things get better. And if they don't, we need to move on with love.
Yeah. You say trusting that what happens to us is always presenting us an opportunity to evolve and change and learn and grow,
Yeah.
and how
There's actually no such, oh, continue.
no, go feel free, go ahead.
There's no such thing. Once you're healthy psychologically and spiritually, there is no such thing as a happening. Every happening is just exactly what you said. It's an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
love more and fear less.
Mm-hmm.
In a relationship where you're mostly scared, walking on eggshells, time has come to make a major change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, and I thought that moving on, trust when I was thinking about trusting again after my divorce, I was really focused on how to make sure that I don't get duped again, how to make sure that this person or whoever I date again or marry again won't hurt me. One of the things that stood out to me that I read is you said, and again, in this idea of this compass of self trust, to move from that place of I trust that you won't hurt me to I trust that I can handle it if you do.
There you go.
And that's
Yes.
such a I call it post-traumatic growth mindset right there. So, like, women that are in the thick of it, that are maybe just still kind of reeling and healing from a lot of this, that can feel a little dangerous, that can feel a little threatening, that can feel a little invalidating maybe, but I'll just speak for myself. When I shifted to that space of I remember my mom, when I started dating my now husband, she was like, "Are you sure? Are you sure you really wanna do this again?" And she said, "Because you might get hurt again. It might happen again." And I remember saying to her, "Yeah, well, if I do, mom, that means life just sucks sometimes." I knew at that point that I could handle hard, that I could do hard. I knew that in myself. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and getting to that place of sense of self and trust in self and confidence in self. I even think about your 5 A's and, like, developing all of those for myself. It's none of us wants this. None of us asks for this. But we live in a human world with humans that make really harmful, impactful, awful decisions that impact us. But when we lose ourself and let it mean something about who we are at our core, that's where I feel like so many get stuck. So I love what you're saying about I look at it like if I anchor to higher power because I can't be all the things to me. I run out of juice. I get exhausted if I try to do that.
Of course.
So being able to draw upon something higher, even if it is the sun, right? A lot of my Hindu neighbors, they worship the sun. They'll, bow to the sun. I love my ladies that will turn in their walks and face the sun and bow to it. It's such a beautiful reminder for me to look up and go, "Oh yeah, there's the sun. It shows up every day. It's consistent, like you were saying, something we can draw upon." Rooted in reality. So staying present, staying anchored in what is facts, truth today. I feel like that up and down, when I can focus on that, it allows me to trust myself and others in a way that doesn't pull me out of reality. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes. I think you said it perfectly. And I love the part about we're not looking for someone who will certainly never hurt us, because that's contrary to the given of life. People sometimes hurt us, even when they have good intentions not to. We're looking instead to become so strong that it no longer matters.
Mm,
That when they do hurt us, we've built up such personal strength that we're able to handle it, say out, grieve, dialogue, try to work it out, go to therapy if needed. And if it keeps happening over and over, then we're moving away from each other and time may have come for separation. But what matters is that now I'm strong enough so that I can handle what comes my way.
mhm.
I'd like to share something interesting. I was reading a poem a week ago by Sappho. She's an ancient Greek poet who lived on the Isle of Lesbos, from which we get the word lesbian. And she had a strong attraction to young girls. She was oriented that way. And the poem is a prayer to her patron goddess. They had gods and goddesses, the way we have patron saints. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. And she was asking Aphrodite, this young girl that I'm so attracted to, would you make her notice me and grow in attraction to me?
Mm,
That was her prayer.
mm,
Poem was a prayer. And I said to myself, instead of asking to make sure my wish comes true, manipulate that young girl to turn toward me, how about asking, make me so strong that it no longer matters that I may be attracted to someone and I just have to let that happen and not manipulate the other person to try to feel the same way. That's strength, not, oh, goody, she wants me the way I want her.
yeah.
See what I mean? I
I
said to
do, I
myself,
do.
boy, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah, there it is for sure. I
Even
mean,
even your prayer life becomes more mature.
mhm, mhm.
It's, oh, goddess, help me not to want somebody so much that I would even stoop to try to make them want me. Help
Yeah.
me just show love to everyone and even to special people. If something comes of it, great. And if nothing comes of it, I'll survive. Help me survive.
Well, I liked your point there too of, it changes our prayers and creates one of your books is like being an adult in an adult relationship. And I think even in our relationship with God changes when we become more of an adult that way, when we shift that way. Because oftentimes I can look at my younger self and those prayers of, please, God, let them choose me. Really, it was I wanted to be chosen, and being chosen felt like it was fulfilling that worth and value. And then when the person didn't choose, it was easy to blame God. It was easy to be like, well, I prayed and I asked and I prayed and I begged and I asked. I did all the things, God. So even as the maturity shifts in that way, it does shift more of thy will be done way. And there is an allowing
Yes.
there, right? That also comes, I think, from higher power. At least that's my experience, but it makes so much sense. There is a letting go of needing that fulfillment. You used the word ego before, how someone chooses me or loves me or responds to me when it's from the inside out. Again, I feel like what you said earlier, what we attract shifts because this inside thing shifts.
Absolutely.
It just,
And that's so much more important than what the other person will be like.
yes, because they worry so much about getting it wrong again. And I totally remember doing this because I thought I got it wrong to begin with, which that's a whole other conversation I think you and I can have. But they're really worried about with this whole trust thing. Well, I just don't want to mess it up. I don't want to choose wrong. So what happens is, and it's kind of a trend. I don't know if you've seen this, but a trend is so because I'm worried that it's going to happen again, because you, David and Amie are saying, well, can't really guarantee that you're not going to get hurt. Okay, I'm just going to go live on my other island and I'm going to be independent. I don't need anybody. I don't need anybody. And if I don't need anybody, then I'll be safe. And there's this hyper independence happening where I see a lot of people just wanting to live on their own island to stay safe.
Mm.
What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, instead of moving to your isle of safety, every place becomes safe when you know that any human can do anything, trust or be trustworthy or not. And you've gotten strong enough so that you're capable of dealing with it.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned the 5 A's, which I've present as, ways of showing love, that you're attentive, accepting, appreciative, affectionate in a appropriate way, and totally allowing freedom in the other person.
Mm.
And when you give those 5 A's to yourself, that's how you build the inner resources so that whatever comes along, I know I can handle it.
Yes. You've mentioned the 5 givens enough that I think it might be worth sharing with our audience what those are. Uh,
Sure.
Again, this was another element of your book that I loved, and I feel like really helps when people can accept this, it will help you move into that post-traumatic growth work that I was mentioning earlier, getting them kind of moving forward and healing in a healthy direction. So,
Yes. And by the way, it's particularly difficult to do this building of inner resources when you come from terrible abuse.
yeah.
And then the very first part of the work is to deal with the abuse. I know you're a person who helps people do that. And it's a specialty, and I'm so glad you're putting it out there because it's really needed. Sometimes a lot of the issue has to do with our childhood,
Yeah.
and we chose someone that we think is going to give us what was missing from our parents. And as long as we're doing that without saying it out loud to the other person and getting an agreement that he, she, they will do that, we're setting ourselves up for great disappointment. Anyway, the 5 givens of life are first of all just 5 out of 5 million.
Right.
For instance, one given is based, just to speak in very simple terms, a given is something that you take for granted as real because you can't argue with it.
Mm.
Remember in high school in geometry, they had the givens of the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You don't have to prove it and you can't disprove it.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a given. A simple example of a given is based on where you live. I live in California. So a given is that there could be an earthquake. Formerly, I lived in Connecticut. A given is that there could be hurricanes that cause damage.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to happen. Vice versa is probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if there is an earthquake, I can't complain because I already gave implicit consent by moving here. Don't want earthquakes, don't move here. Okay.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The 5 givens that I picked are: 1, everything changes and ends. And that's based on the Buddhist principle of impermanence.
Yes.
So you can't expect the relationship to stay as good as it is in the romantic phase. I talk about the 3 phases in a relationship: romance, conflict, and then either commitment or separation. Secondly, things don't always go according to plan. You want things to come out a certain way. They don't necessarily come out that way. They might, but it's not a promise. Suffering is part of everyone's life. People are not trustworthy and loyal and loving all the time. They can't be relied on for that, even though they might be loving and loyal most of the time.
Mm. And then the last one is the one I say to my children all the time when they were growing up.
Yeah, that life is not fair.
Not fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you accept those 5 with an unconditional yes, and when you realize that any of those 5 could happen to you at any time,
Ugh.
you're just totally getting it, that that's how the universe helps you grow up, by accepting these givens rather than fighting them tooth and nail.
Ooh, hold on. That's how the universe helps you grow up. Ooh.
Yeah. When you
Ooh.
get it, that you're not getting you're not entitled to special treatment. Those 5 are going to happen to every single human without exception. No matter how nice you are, no matter how good your parents were, it's just
Matter spiritual you
how we
are.
get stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they really have to be there.
Now,
Like a Neum of 5, but
well, yes, but to your point earlier, we can get stronger or we can allow those things when they happen, because as you say, they will bury us in victimhood and bury us in anger,
yeah,
bury us in in that catabolic energy that keeps us stuck.
how can I accept this happening in such a way that I get stronger because of it? That's what a healthy person asks, not why did this happen to me? And implicit in that is it shouldn't happen to me because I'm such a good person. It isn't based on goodness or badness. It's just the roll of the dice.
And the agency of another human being that we don't have control over.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If we make it, I mean, again, what you're saying, I just want to validate how some of you listeners, depending on where you're at in your journey of healing, this might be pushing against something really, really hard right now. And I want to validate that. For example, what you said, David, like you can be good, you can be a good human, you can be a good person, you can be the best wife, mother, you can have the best sex, you can be whatever. And this thing that's bad still happens if we make it. And I did this, I made it. Like, what is wrong with me? I was so good in all those things. I tried so hard in all those things. By doing that, it created this deterioration of my worth, my value, and my enoughness as a human being, as a soul, because I made it the of a good, a bad thing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think that's why you're saying what you're saying and why it's so true. And even though it might be pushing on some people's brains right now because we want to judge the behavior as bad, right? We don't want to in any way say things that feel like we're validating or dismissing the harm. And that's not what you're saying. This is physics. We're the law of physics. We as humans are gonna bump it.
Yes,
They're humans, and we're gonna
it's
get
the
bumped
law.
into.
Yes, it's the law of the universe,
Yeah.
or the 5 laws. What you said reminded me of something that I have in the book, and I name the book The 5 Things We Cannot Change, from the, Alcoholics Anonymous prayer, "Accept the things I cannot change,
Yeah.
a pathway to freedom from addiction." Since addiction is often based on an argument with the way things are. Anyway, happiness is not a reward, and pain is not a punishment. And the others to say it in reverse. If happiness is not a reward, then it must be that you do the right thing just exactly the way with the motive that they told us in grammar school. Virtue is its own reward. We're not doing these good things so that we will get something like happiness, although it may happen. And secondly, I didn't cause this disease that I have or issue that I have in my relationship. And I can't expect that if I'm really good, nothing bad will happen to me. And if I'm not good, something bad will happen to me. Because we've seen over and over again, terrible people have prosperity, and wonderful people have the opposite. So,
Yep.
so that's another example of being a lot more mature in how you see things.
And that maturity, I think, at least for me, has come and is developing, because I don't think there's an arrival to that. It constantly learning and growing and practicing maturity. Because man, it's easy for me to go back there quick when I see all these things happen in the world, bad things to good people. It's easy to be like, why? But as I practice, I think it does come from the self-awareness and
And part
the
of
radical
being
acceptance.
self-aware. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the radical acceptance of things that we can't.
Yes. Tara Brach uses that phrase, which I really love, radical acceptance.
Yep.
Radical in Latin means root, like the root of a plant. It has to go all the way down into the roots of yourself.
That's why I like you have that as self, because I feel like it's that root anchoring.
Yeah. Also, we're not used to noticing suffering quickly and moving out of it. We're used to putting up with it. I have that quote in one of my books. I don't remember which one. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see here, because it's a really good quote. Oh, here it is. I found it. All experience has shown that humans are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed.
Mm.
I'll restate it in modern English. But it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. See, he noticed we will put up with the injustices imposed on us by England rather than speak up and say, we want independence. We don't want to be under your thumb anymore. Get what I mean?
I do.
And when I read that, I said to myself, oh, that's just what we do in relationships sometimes.
Yep. It's
We're
fine.
disposed to suffer.
Yeah. Which is why myself and so many of my clients stayed so long.
Yeah.
Any last words to these particular?
No, but I really honor and appreciate and applaud the work that you're doing.
Well,
I
thank
think
you.
it's important to have an outreach to a specific part of the population, namely, those of us who have gone through divorce. And you're trying to show that there's a way of handling it that could make you stronger and better. It's not just getting stronger, it's that this helps me have a better sense of ethics.
Yeah.
That's how you know that it really worked.
Mm,
Work on yourself.
yeah.
It's not just, oh, now I can handle anything. Now I've gotten stronger. It's, I also don't retaliate. That's my most recent book, just came out a couple months ago. It's called Sweeter Than Revenge.
Mhm.
And I have a whole chapter in there. I've been a therapist for 55 years, now retired. I noticed over and over again the people whose marriages did not work had one thing in common. They kept doing payback
Mm,
in little and big ways. And that's the opposite of a successful relationship. And it's not moral either. It's not the right thing to do. It's not like starting the day with oatmeal. It's like starting the day with a cigarette, a cup of coffee, and a donut.
Say in my podcast every week with the tagline that says, "You're the chooser in your life, and you get to create the life that you want because you can." And I feel like the things that you taught today and shared, when applied, can help put them back into that place of being the chooser and creating a life, creating a day, creating a moment in the way that nourishes them. They can do that because they can. They have the freedom to. They just need to choose it. So thank you for your time.
Well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And good luck in your work.
Thanks. To find out more about David Richo or get a list of his books, I will have them all there for you in the show notes. Before I go, I want to leave you with something that David wrote in Daring to Trust that I think captures everything that we've talked about today. He says, "To love with an open heart in an unpredictable world, to trust again after we've been hurt, to keep believing in human goodness when we've seen cruelty is not naivete. This is the ultimate triumph of hope over fear, of love over betrayal. It is the most courageous thing we can do." To every one of you listening who is wondering if you'll ever be able to trust again, you already are. The fact that you're here doing this work, asking these questions, seeking these truths, that's trust rebuilding itself from the inside out. You are not broken and you are becoming wise. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next week. Take care.